you saw that like Minnesota was there for like a bar fight tonight. Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every Monday night from TheRinger.com is Kevin O'Connor, a.k.a. Kevin O'Bomber, Kevin O'Concert, Kevin O'Climber, Kevin O'Camera, Kevin O'Candyland, Kevin O'Blazarian, Kevin O'Conflict, Kevin!
I can't believe what we just saw, Chris. I can't believe it.
I never in a million years expected to see what we just watched. So we are in agreement right off the bat on this podcast. You know, what history has told us is that if a team loses a home game, especially if it's two good teams playing, team loses a home game, then you go back, especially if it was a close game, you make the proper adjustments, and usually that team responds with a win. In fact, they usually respond with a double-digit win. Vegas had set the line, I think, around 7 or something like that when I looked at it earlier in the day, maybe 7.5. But the margin of victory in the response game is usually pretty high. And so you figured this is the defending champs. They've got pride, backs against a wall somewhat, because you don't want to lose the first 2 games at home and put yourself in a position where you're going to have to beat that team 4 out of the next 5 times that you played them, and you have lost home court completely. And that team could close you out on their home court. But from the tip tonight, it felt like that was not the way this was going to go. There was a ferocity in which the T-Wolves came out. They forced Denver to look like an absolute mess, and we're going to have a dialogue about this because, you know, this is 2 games, and that was mega impressive. Just, you know, psychologically, you would think there's a letdown. There's so much of the press conference after game 2 where the team gets to come in there and say, look, we came here to get one. We got one, right? Like, that's the game 2 press conference. We've seen it 1,000 times. And now they're going to go to that press conference to talk about getting 2 and then going and have an opportunity to close it out on their home floor.
Unbelievable. I can't believe, like, and just the whole setup for the day. Rudy Gobert is having his firstborn child. He's questionable for the game. Will he? Won't he play? Should he play? Then he's not playing after it seems like he might play. And you're like, oh God, they're going to be without potential 4 times defensive player of the year. And game 2, a chance to go up 2-0 on Denver. And then they come out and they're hovering around a 30-point lead for pretty much the entire game. Naz Reid is blocking Jokic twice on one play. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels just harassing Denver on the perimeter on every single possession. Like it was just, I could not have seen it coming in this way. And I think with Denver, right out of the gates, it felt like a team that for the first time in their 2-year run here has had their backs against the wall and they just folded. It felt like a team that didn't deal well with this adversity at all. They're complaining to the officials. They're wanting calls. Like, there was the play where McDaniels and Alexander Walker were, you know, just completely draping Murray, and you could see in the replay clearly not fouling him. And he's complaining to the refs. There was a video posted on X that he threw the money sign at referees early in the second quarter, and he threw the heat pad on the floor. I wonder if a suspension could be coming for him, if not a massive fine. It just felt like Denver was completely taken out of what we've seen for them from 2 years now, with Minnesota's size and length individually and their just collective ability. Like, they have 5 guys with 1 brain on the court is what it feels like, the way they rotate on defense. And they have completely taken away that freelancing and that improvisation we so often see from Jokic and the Nuggets offense. I am just blown away. It is one of the best defensive performances I have ever seen in my entire life watching the NBA.
Couple of things. You know, I covered Kyle Anderson when he was with Memphis. He is a great team basketball player. You know,
So
he had
good.
to fill in for another guy that ended up winning a Defensive Player of the Year once upon a time in Jaren Jackson Jr. He is a great team defender because he's switchable. He will take on bigs. He will take on smalls. He's
in the right position,
always in the right spot, and he's got really, really good hands. Really good hands.
And it was the putback on offense too.
Yeah.
And the rebounds, the passing, so good.
Oh, and every time he gets big minutes, he fills up stat sheets. I think he had 9 rebounds tonight. I think he had 8 assists tonight, to go along with some points. So he brings a different problem to the table. And I couldn't help but wonder if in this odd way, and this is not making excuses for Denver. They were absolutely suffocated by Minnesota. I do wonder if there was some level of blessing on the Minnesota side in that they were going to be very different in terms of the way if you're watching the film and you're saying, okay, here's what we got to do against Rudy. I mean, he is the hub of that defense. Well, what about when all that gets thrown in the trash?
Yeah, that's all they prepped for was the last couple of days was going against Rudy Gobert, what to do on offense against him, what to do on defense against him.
Right, because he's the one. Like, I mean, he's the starting center, and he's a major cog. And it's like, okay, here are the problems that were presented in game 1 for us. How do we alleviate said problems? And then you look up, and you got a 6'8" guy.
Absolutely, and it completely changes totally the way they play.
Yes,
totally changed. Suddenly you go from playing like with Rudy Gobert, rim running, screening, and rolling lob guy and interior force to, oh my God, they're 5 out the entire game.
Right.
With Reed, Anderson, and Towns as the front court instead. And then suddenly they're playing completely different on defense. It's like facing a completely different Minnesota team in game 2 when Anderson's playing double the minutes that he did in game 1 and has a massive role compared to game 1 as well. I think you're spot on with that maybe that was a curveball that the Nuggets were not at all ready for at one bit, and credit to the Wolves for being able to adjust on the fly, because that's what they've done all season long. Anytime a guy was in or out of the lineup, and we've talked about this with Minnesota, their ability with their bigs to just take on different shapes. That's what makes them so tough to defend. They're always big. They're always long, and they definitely look like the quicker, longer, bigger team over Denver, which is rare. Not many teams do. But tonight, they were also just the more versatile team because when they don't have Gobert, they can take on that different shape. And then when they do have Rudy, they can play that style that they've been so dominant with for so long this season. So I think you're right there, Chris. That could have been a big component of it.
And I think you had to bet probably that you're coming into that game and you're going, all right, we got to figure out how to make this Gordon thing dangerous again.
Yes.
Because, they're putting Towns on Jokic a lot. Gobert's having to watch this lob thing. Well, now he shows up at Kyle Anderson's guard him. That is a totally different deal. And I don't care that Aaron Gordon had 20 points. It was awful. The guy, I guarantee you, I have not looked at this yet. I guarantee you his plus minus was just atrocious.
Well, I mean, everybody was on Denver.
I know. Where was
minus 33, a team low for the Nuggets.
The worst on the team.
Worst in the team, yeah.
And they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we deal with this? Because this Murray, Jokic, Gordon as the lob threat, 3-pronged thing has been a big, big problem for teams. And so we've got to figure this out because now we're having to deal with a totally different animal in Gobert. And then they show up to the fight. And then they got punched in the mouth. And then you saw that, like, Minnesota was there for, like, a bar fight tonight. And I tweeted this out. You got punched in the mouth, and instead of punching back, you went and tried to grab the manager. That's what you did.
That's what they did. And right from the jump.
And this used to happen with Doc's Clippers teams. And then it came from their coach. Once he had the meltdown, now everybody's melting down.
And they didn't even give him the tech for that, which I like. I like the refs not giving techs out for
Mark
human
Davis
emotions.
is awful. We know Mark Davis, how he is reffing playoff games is beyond comprehension. Him and John Goble, you watch these games, and I just wait for some dumb crap to happen. But look, I do think that there is an element to that where they probably saw something that they weren't ready for. And then they just mentally broke down. And that's what was so unbecoming of a champion. They end up shooting 35% from the field. They end up shooting 30% from three. They had as many turnovers as they had assists in the game. And
Unreal.
Minnesota racked up 23 steals and blocks. They had 11 steals and 12 blocks as a team. I mean, they were harassing everything they did. And Murray was such a huge problem for them last year, and they have mauled him. And that's it. If they don't have Murray going, now that affects everything. He has to be not only good, he has to be great. And instead, he was pitiful.
Didn't I call this out to you last week, Chris, ahead of the series? I said, yes, he had 2-game winning jumpers against the Lakers, but he did not look like the same version of himself that we've seen in the past because of the calf injury and because he historically doesn't get in shape until the All-Star break. Same thing this year. And then he does get in shape and he's firing out of the gates, but then he got hurt. So not only is he hurt with a calf injury, he's also still not in shape like he was in last year's playoff run. And now you're seeing the Timberwolves exploit him in ways that the Lakers, tried to do. It's not like Murray had an awesome series aside from the game winners against the Lakers, but the Wolves just have so much better personnel. They have McDaniels, who is a clear-cut all-defensive player, and then Alexander Walker, who belonged in the conversation, and I'm sure he'll get some votes. And Edwards, who's, defending at the highest level we've ever seen from him. He's very good when he's, playing the full regular season, but he's even locking in more now. So it doesn't matter who you're throwing on him. Even Mike Conley, for that matter, is playing great defense as a smaller guard.
It's a communication thing, too. They are, you always want defense on a string.
In.
And even if you do get past that line of defense, which is almost impenetrable. Like, seriously, they just move their feet and stay in front of guys. Even if you do, you look up and, not tonight, but it's Rudy Gobert standing there. Yeah. So tonight it's Naz Reid, it's Kyle Anderson, it's Towns. Towns is guarding, Towns is rebounding, and they've hit a stride here. They've obviously won every playoff game they have played so far. And
unbelievable.
The way they look tonight, they made a Denver team that is a prohibitive favorite to win the championship look terrible. They scored 80 friggin' points, Kev.
They didn't look like the defending champions. I mean, that's the thing, like, that's so striking to me when watching tonight's game. They just, if you didn't know that they were the defending champions last year with the way they were complaining to the referees and the way they just folded under pressure, you wouldn't have thought that they won the title a year ago. Like, this wasn't championship behavior.
And where was Jokic?
Yeah.
I mean, he was
invisible.
Just getting, it's so crazy. The guy's about to win his third MVP this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the best player on the floor through the first two games has decidedly not been Nikola Jokic.
Very clearly, Anthony Edwards now. It has been very clearly.
And one of the things we've talked about is, look, when it comes down to these series, the best player usually wins. When he gets to the end, the best player is usually there, right? If it's not the best player, it's one of the top 2 or 3, right?
Yep.
That's the way it is. And so you look at a series and you go, yeah, but because in basketball, the difference can be I've got the best guy. But, you're watching him he's just throwing the ball away. And
some careless turnovers.
And then getting
how much of it do you think it could be fatigue? Like I'm
not making any excuses for him.
I'm not saying it as an excuse. I'm just raising the point with how difficult it is to go back to back, where you make a run until June last year and you win it all. Like, this is what made it so remarkable, not to bring him into the discussion, but going to the finals as many years in a row as LeBron did. It was just like, how does this guy and these teams do it over and over every year? It's crazy.
Well, it's because they had to get past Roy Hibbert. Yeah, I mean, you set it up, bro.
I know, but I'm just saying.
How could he get past Roy Hibbert every year?
And 37-year-old Kevin Garnett.
It's incredible.
And
I'm kidding.
And Isaiah Thomas and her hip.
I don't want to take away from his accomplishment.
But point being is, like, it is tough to go back to back, like, to be on that journey through June year after year. And just Jokic does not look like himself at all.
Also, hard to go back to back when the guy that built your team went and built a team to beat your team, right?
Yes. Like, it's like Tim Connelly knew.
I saw Nate Jones tweet that out the other night. And he put it so perfectly. He's like, this is just downright wild. The guy that built the Nuggets went and built the team best equipped to beat the Nuggets. And they got all that crazy crap going on with Glenn Taylor and A-Rod or whatever. Like, somebody may go offer this guy $20 million to find a team that can beat the Wolves when this all said and done. What if the guy just bounces franchise to franchise and starts building title teams?
And then suddenly all 30 teams are title contenders?
Because Tim Connelly ran them for like 2 years. That'd be pretty great. Look, that was mega impressive. The other thing is they lost one of their starting five, Rudy Gobert, who is the presumptive defensive player of the year this week. And they did not expand the amount of guys they played.
No.
They shortened it.
Yeah.
Only Naw and Reed played any significant minutes off of their bench, which I thought was another crazy thing that took place, right? And somehow, with just those two, they still have a massive bench advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up the Murray thing. I do not think it's out of the question that they could suspend him for chucking something on the board.
No. Not at all.
It's
not
certainly in play.
No.
And the Reggie Jackson injury matters a lot then.
Yes. Yep. For sure. I mean, like, you're going to see, this is where you could criticize Calvin Booth for his approach to the season. Before the season, he said to me in the story that I wrote, our objective isn't to go back to back. It's to build a dynasty. And so we're investing in youth rather than veterans. And we saw that they didn't make any moves at the deadline. And granted, they didn't have many assets. They overvalued their young players. They weren't willing to put them on the table. So they went with what they got. And so despite having, Tyson and Strother and Pickett and all these young guys on the bench that aren't playing at all, Justin Holiday, who was good tonight, and Reggie Jackson are the guys that are leading your bench in minutes, because Malone's going with the veterans anyway. The veterans that you kind of just settled for rather than actually desired and wanted. So I think with Minnesota's bench compared to Denver's bench, you look at two completely different perspectives, where Minnesota's going out there and getting Monte Morris, who played a little bit tonight. I don't think he's not a significant player, but they've tried to make additions over the last 2 years. Nickeil Alexander-Walker last year at the deadline. And by the way, getting Mike Conley in that same deal, thanks to the Lakers for choosing D'Angelo Russell over Mike Conley. What a gift to Minnesota that Pelinka made that choice, versus Denver, which doesn't really have anything that was invested in during the season, because, Tyson and Strother and these younger guys, aside from Watson and Brown, weren't getting consistent opportunity at all. So I think with Denver, there seems to be kind of a lack of alignment on
maybe
organizational philosophy. Otherwise, I do think you would have seen Strother and Tyson, especially Tyson as an older prospect, entering, getting investment for these moments, because that's what Christian Brown got last year. Christian Brown last year, they played him all year long. And then when it came time to the playoffs, he was ready to step up when needed. I don't think Denver has any of those guys off the bench that you can feel like Malone will trust, if Jackson's out or Murray is out right now.
That's totally fair. What I'll say is this. I'm always a little timid, especially with a team that's won a title and has got the 3-time MVP on it, to bury him completely.
Don't bury him. I'm not burying anybody.
Everything wrong with him. The truth is,
I'm not burying them, Chris.
I'm with you on the stuff that you brought up. None of that shit matters if Jamal Murray doesn't suck. It just doesn't. He's terrible. He can't do anything. He couldn't. He got to the point where he was so mad he's talking to his dad in the stands and throwing a heating bag on the court.
But how much of that? How much of him being 9 of 32
Julian
in the
Strother
series,
being able to play doesn't? I mean, it's not going to change anything.
The only point is about replacing these guys or getting more from your bench. It's not like Reggie Jackson has done anything in the series either. It'd be nice to have a better option than him. It'd be nice to have more shooting when you're shooting 32% from 3 in the entire series, but you didn't invest in Strother. You didn't invest in Tyson, these guys who could add shooting over the course of the year. So, what's the move? Let's say you've got to decide, hey, we need to go a different route than the Gordon thing, like they did in the Lakers series last year, right? They don't have that right now
because it's not Jeff Green ain't there, Bruce Brown ain't there. They don't have. That's where, to me, the depth comes in. It's like, all right, if we want to make some big move here, some personnel decisions where somebody that's been playing a lot for us is going to be playing less. And here's a chess move we can make. There's not an obvious guy to just say, hey, this can help us go smaller and this could make us much more dynamic or whatever. Obviously, that starting five is that starting five, and it's been one of the best. And they have not performed because they have gotten absolutely swallowed up. Now, they have, and it might be most important to Murray, they got 5 days. Because of the way this series is planned out, they're not playing again until Friday. So you have to marinate in that loss for an entire week. Now, on the other hand, if Murray's really been, this playing every other day is no great shakes for a guy that's been a little banged up already, maybe it gives him time to, recuperate. And by Friday, he looks like Jamal Murray.
At the same time, Minnesota still has time to rest too. Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, after hustling their asses off in the high altitude for that 2 games and 3 nights.
But this guy's been hurt. Like, I'm talking about recovering so that he can look more like himself.
He doesn't have his burst. He just doesn't. I don't think excuses. It's not an excuse for Denver. It's just the reality. He's not 100%. And there's a lot of guys who are banged up right now on every single team. But for Minnesota, even if Jamal Murray isn't 100%, this is the thing I'd say. Alexander Walker and McDaniels are still making your life hell. Even if Murray's 100% on Friday morning when he wakes up. Those guys are still going to be limiters for him.
The only one that I would give the benefit of the doubt in this case, because, look, I watched what everybody else watched. This looks like a mangling. And it very well may be. I am going to reserve until game 3, because that was so, and it might just be just total denial. Maybe they really are just that much better than that team. But I kind of feel like they probably had their response in mind, and off tip, nothing. Then they were already frustrated, and then, they're getting swallowed up and the calls aren't going their way, and then they lost their minds completely. And it's like, they still have the guy that's about to win the 3rd MVP. They still have Jamal Murray, who we've watched been great in the playoffs many, many, many times.
And Michael Porter Jr.
And they've got an outstanding coach, right? So, and they have all this time. If they don't win 3, look, it goes without saying, right? They're not coming back from 3-0. But I'm saying, I'm going to give them a chance to have the big response that they did not have tonight in game 3. And any other team, I would be leaving them for dead completely leaving them for dead. I fear I probably should be leaving them for dead. I just watched that, and they look like absolute crap. And they didn't look like absolute crap by their own doing. They look like absolute crap by Minnesota's doing.
Spot on, Chris. Yeah. I mean, you got to give them respect as the defending champions. with, an all-timer in Jokic and all the talent that they have. But at the same time, Minnesota looks like the bigger, better, longer, hungrier team in every single way. And they look like the team that was built to take down Denver, and they very well might.
Yeah. I mean, you could still see for instance, where this thing is playing a game 6 in Denver. I'm sorry, a game 6 in Minnesota. And it would simply be that, there is a level of comfort that comes up with the 2-0 lead and stealing home court advantage. And it is, if there's ever been a grand slam effort from a team, you would expect to see it from Denver on Friday night, right? When they play each other. That's what you'd expect. And that's why I say, and if you win 3, all right, you probably lose the turnaround game in 4. Then you win your home game 5, and then you get probably closed out in 6. I mean, it's, when I said I don't want to bury them completely just because of who they've got, on the other hand, the logic says they're going to beat them 4 out of 5 times. Like, really? It's hard to see. It's hard to see them beating that. It might be hard to see them. Look, tonight, it's hard to see them beating that team at all. I don't know. I mean,
the funny thing is, I was texting you and Jessie earlier today, like, hey, letting you know next Thursday I'm going to be.
I know you got something going on
to see Dead and Company. So we're gonna have to figure out if we record Wednesday night instead or Friday.
You needed to end it this week.
Well, because game 6, that's game 6 next Thursday night, the scheduled game 6, and we're like, well, we'll see. And I said to you, maybe it'll end in 4 or 5. I mean, very well might. There might be no games next Thursday night, and I'll be able to go see Dead and Company opening night at the Sphere. No worries at all.
You might really be able to see it. By the way, who is on? Is it Bob Weir still? Is he still doing it?
I'm going to sound like, I'm sure really Deadheads listening are going to be mad at me. I'm there to hear John Mayer jam over Grateful Dead tracks. Like Bob Weir is in the band still, but as I've seen John Mayer like 5 or 6 times in concert, and I could listen to him play guitar all day. So with Dead and Company, it is some of the most beautiful just jam music. So I'm very excited to experience Dead and Company for the first time live. And yes, it's Bob Weir, Mickey Hart. I think they're like the 2 longest lasting members from Grateful Dead still in the band today. But yeah, John Mayer being part of that. I'm sure like Grateful Dead fans feel similarly like to a lot of people. It's cool that John Mayer ushered in kind of a new generation of fans of the Grateful Dead. With him being, I guess he's been around a while himself, but anybody like 45 or 50 or younger John Mayer fan like myself, I'm excited for it. Going to be great. And it's the Sphere.
I'm seeing this already get posted. At least the opening line for the next game is Minnesota 4.5. That's what got posted.
Wow.
So it is the expectation is that is going to be that's going to be 3-0. Right now, it is minus 500 T-Wolves. You'd have to bet $500 to win 100.
Wow.
And the Nuggets are plus 380. Wow.
Dude. Something else, man.
So that's what Vegas is saying. This is not happening for the Nuggets. That's what Vegas is saying. Now
unbelievable.
They could surprise us, but man, oh man, that is just crazy impressive. I feel goofy even saying I want to see how they respond in game 3 because I was sure they would respond in game 2 and they just got demolished and scored 80 points. That's outrageous. It's an outrageous number. That's your response game? Was dropping 80? I don't get it.
I'll tell you one thing on this, Chris. One last thing. I think Jokic, we might have to see him take a career high shots in the postseason. It's 31. Agree. 31 is his career high in the playoffs. I think you're going to have to see Jokic compensate for Murray not being quite the same guy, and he's just going to have a full takeover.
I agree. He has a chance to respond as well. So we talked a lot about defense and how unbelievable Minnesota was defensively. Not a lot of great defense in the first game tonight.
Nope.
Knicks 121 to 117, and I thought they were lucky as hell to win this game. I picked the Knicks. I thought they were going to handle Indiana, and I thought they were very lucky to come away with this win. I thought Indiana dictated the pace. This is exactly the kind of game that they want to play the Knicks in. They don't want to be
down.
They don't want to be playing you run a play, we run a play.
Did you see Josh Hart in the in-between quarter interview?
I couldn't believe it.
He's like, "Is this the pace you want to play at?" He's like, "Yeah, we want to play up and down."
That's
insane.
Like,
no, you don't. You're lying.
That's insane.
You're playing all 48 minutes. You want to be playing half court, Josh
You're
Hart.
going to lose playing like that against this team. This is where they dwell. This is where they're comfortable. And I really thought the Knicks were lucky to come away with this. They shot 54% from the field, and they shot 48% from three. And that saved their ass because they had less assists. They had double the turnovers.
14. So sloppy.
They had one more offensive rebound than the friggin' Pacers. We just watched the series against Philly. Ball comes off the rim. There's like 5 torpedoes coming at the rim for New York. None of that took place. They had less blocks. They had less steals. Like, all that stuff that I thought New York would dominate, they didn't dominate any of it. And it was just because they shot these crazy percentages that they won this game. And also, look, I picked New York. I thought New York was going to handle them. Fair is fair. I thought they got away with this one. I did not think this is not the kind of game they can be playing against Indiana. And beyond that, they got every friggin' big call. And the refs not allowing the players to decide that game was abhorrent to me.
Shameful. I mean,
it really ruined.
And
again, I'm not saying I wanted them, they screwed over. Yeah, of course they did screw over the Pacers. I just want players to decide the game. Yeah. End of story, right? I want
which is what Minnesota Denver felt like.
Yes. And I look, there's going to be missed calls, but I'm certainly more understanding of let it play. If you missed a call and the play went on like it did at the end of Knicks Sixers, with the Maxey play and then DiVincenzo hitting the shot and whatever else, like, yeah, you look back and the 2-minute thing says they screwed them or whatever. I would much rather somebody get screwed and a play took place than have some stupid whistle where
the kickball,
and then the moving screen.
I know.
And
ridiculous.
I know look, you letter of the law nerds enough. You did this in the women's UConn game. It's
ridiculous.
Gross. It's gross.
So stupid. In that moment, it's unreal.
Gross.
Yeah.
You can't. Come on, bro. Come on. It's a moving screen in the first quarter. It's a moving screen in the fourth.
It's like Halliburton should have let him set the screen first. He went too soon. It's like, okay. It shouldn't be called at that moment. Just let them play. There's just too many whistles at the end of the game. It ruined my enjoyment of the game. But,
And look, I'll say this. Knicks better figure out that defense because you can't play that way against Indiana. You are asking for it because that was a crap game for Halliburton. He had 6 points, and you're in a nip-tuck game down the stretch. And your guy was out of his mind. He had 20-something in the fourth. He had 43. Brunson became the 4th player in NBA history with 4 straight 40-point playoff games.
Dude.
Hey, he's got a chance.
On one, man.
Well, and he's got a chance to separate himself. So Jerry West did it 6 straight games.
Wow.
I guess that's how you become the logo. Jordan did it 4, and Bernard King did it 4.
Wow.
So if Brunson does it in game 2, he'll be alone in second place.
Huh.
With 5 straight.
Wow.
5 consecutive 40-point playoff games would be, I mean, it's already crazy with 4.
Unreal.
It's unbelievable.
That's a hell of a stat.
Think about all the great players in NBA history and all the great playoff performers in NBA history. You know. And the other thing is, you want to talk about somebody that needs some rest. Jeez Louise, Tibbs.
Josh Hart?
The whole damn team.
The whole team.
Dude, Hart played 48, Dante played 44, and Brunson played 43.
Well, then OG with 42.
Dude, their bench got outscored 46-3.
Mm-hmm.
And they won.
Now, I think
46-3.
So it's a little bit different with the way these games went, but the conversation is bringing me back to game 1 of Thunder Pelicans, where after game 1, it was like, well, is this series going to be closer than people expected?
Yeah.
Well, I think everything you're saying about Indiana, you could flip the other way and say, well, the Knicks should be better in these ways moving forward, that the Pacers won't necessarily be as good as they were in game 1. I think with Halliburton, the concern there is similar to the concern that I had with the absence of Zion, the underwhelming performances of Ingram and CJ McCollum for New Orleans in that Thunder series. Halliburton just isn't the same guy right now. We've talked about this the entire second half of the year. We've talked about it all postseason. I ranted to you a couple weeks ago about how I think he needs to try to refine the mid-range jumper. He's shooting well over 40%, near 50%. On pull-up 2s from mid-range. He refuses to use it with any great consistency, instead just sticking to the tough step-back 3s, the getting to the basket. But if he can refine the mid-range, I think it can help him get some scoring. They need to get some scoring from Halliburton. Otherwise, I don't think this series will be that close. Halliburton needs to find himself, because you're not going to get 18 points from TJ McConnell every single night. You're not going to get that from him off the bench. You're not going to get some of these guys like Ben Shepherd going off in the first half. Like, you need Halliburton to be that steadying presence, just creating points from himself, not just creating for others. And I don't feel much confidence that he's going to find it, considering how the past 4 months have gone for him.
It's a good point you make about the Pelicans series, because I could absolutely see Tibbs having them up at 5:30 tomorrow morning, running hills in Western New York, right? And watching that film and just vomiting all over the screen, because it felt a little bit like a team that just came out from a friggin' war against the Sixers, where every possession is attention to detail and flying at the backboards or whatever else. And it was like, oh, this is fun. We're just going to run up and down the field and run up and down the court and play some basketball, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he is you feel like they'll be war ready the next game. Like, because they did none of the hustle shit. None of it. No, that Pacers team is like not filled with dogs. And they had more steals and more blocks and less turnovers, and were like neck and neck in the offensive rebounding categories. Like, all that hustle stuff is what makes the Knicks the Knicks. This friggin' 121-117, like, it looked like a friggin' all-star game compared to what we had just watched against the Sixers, where it was just like, there's no airspace. You're just chasing Maxey around a screen, and then the ball goes on the rim, and there's 5 guys, and everybody's just battling for every little advantage. And guys are diving on the floor in the first quarter of that game, whatever. And this just felt like, like I said, like an all-star game or something. Like, the Knicks cannot play like that, and Tibbs is going to ream their ass for playing like that. So you're probably going to see a response.
If I'm a Pacers fan, I mean, I know you mentioned the referees earlier and all that. Like, I would not be feeling good going into the rest of the series, because I felt like that's the game you had to win. Like, I just don't think you can expect 18 from TJ McConnell and expect Isaiah Jackson to go off again, and Ben Shepherd to go off the bench. And Obi Toppin's been really good.
Bro,
all postseason. The dunk that he had in transition was so funny.
What is wrong with him?
I was laughing so hard. When
if you missed that in a playoff game,
I know.
I there's no amount of money I would not pay to get inside Rick Carlisle's brain for that very moment.
When he saw him leaping and started to go between the legs. I would love to read the inner monologue.
I promise you, he hated that with the fires of 1,000 hells.
He's like, you dope.
And then the guy pulled up for 3 and hit a big 3, and Obi Toppin was good.
Hey, he was really good.
Their whole bench was good. It was crazy.
All of them. And can you expect that 4 times in the series? To me, Indiana's starters got completely outplayed, and I just don't think the bench is going to completely create that difference every single game. Maybe it's playing the long game, and it's like, you know what, man? At some point, these dudes from New York are going to gas out. They have to. You would think so. So it's just like, I'm gonna play 10 guys and have my guys because are these guys really going to be able to walk by game 4? They're playing 50 minutes every other night for the last 3 weeks. I mean, that doesn't even include the season. Josh Hart is averaging 46.5 points in the 46.5 minutes in the postseason. It's just as minutes per game. I like looking at it. 42, 48, 43, 46, 53, 46, and then 48 in game 1 against the Pacers. It's like, what the hell is going on? You know, those guys, as soon as they found out Bogdanovich was out for the rest of the playoffs, they're like, oh, no. One other dude he would possibly play. And now he's out. I do think Tibbs needs to consider playing a Miles McBride more often. Miles McBride is really good. Philly. He did the first 5 games. And then I think Mitchell Robinson, I think he's off. I don't think he's 100% healthy the way he's moving. He's still enormous, though. I know. He's still big. His size is just when he stands in front of the rim, it's like, geez Louise. It feels like he's going to get every rebound. Tibbs just doesn't have a lot of guys he can trust, because that is a shallow bench. It's like, after them, I mean, who are you going to play? Jericho Sims? Right. I mean, Shake Milton, Alec Burks, who hasn't played at all in the playoffs and is a very below average player. Which is weird, because he was playing pretty well before they got him. Yeah. And he used to like him. Yeah. I don't know. It's just not a lot of options on the bench for Tibbs. Yeah. So I think they're going to run out of steam against the Celtics next round. That's what will happen. That's when that fatigue will start to build. Unless they get time off. It's a lot of minutes. I mean, if they take care of Indiana quickly in 4 or 5, and if Boston goes 6, if Cleveland can steal a game or 2, then New York could get a little bit of rest. But I do think at some point that those minutes have to catch up. They have to. How could they not? Because not only are you playing, it's not 40, it's 48. Yes, and not only are you playing every night, but also on your off days, you're thinking, you're studying more than you do during the regular season. Your mind is working every single day on top of the physical toll that it takes, and you're traveling. I can't see how it can last with their high minutes. And a lot of teams that are this successful beat the piss out of somebody, and everybody gets to sit in the 4th. Yes. That never happens for them. No, they never get to do that. Every game is down to the wire. Yes, they're never getting their ass beat, and they're never beating anybody's ass to the point where you could just sit. The biggest differential is 11. Their game 3 loss against the Sixers. Crazy. That's it. Yeah. All right. You mentioned Boston and the Cavs. Cavs ended up winning a game 7. God bless, it was ugly, but they won on the back of Donovan Mitchell and knock off the Orlando Magic. We've made it a long way into this podcast before I brought up Franz Wagner. I'm going to sign off right now. All right. See you guys. You get the rest of this pod. See ya. Wow. Goodbye. You want to amend it to top 120?
Or no?
No,
I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a chance to amend it to Chris. He could be a top 120 player in the league.
I'll amend it to top 25. I still believe in. I still believe in Franz Wagner.
Okay.
Wagner was a
you and his
game.
mom.
It was and his brother Mo.
Yeah.
You think
I'm not sure.
Too?
I'm not sure after 1 of 15 if your brother
1 of
rolls
15. What is that? The least efficient game 7 in NBA history.
Well, it was history. I didn't realize it was historic.
Yeah,
I just knew it was horrible. I didn't know it was history.
Yeah, it's a rough game. A rough game for Franz Wagner and a rough second half for Paolo Banchero. They looked like the younger, less experienced team. Jalen Suggs only 2 of 13. And Donovan Mitchell,
he owes Suggs like $500 at minimum, because at least people are throwing Suggs' line in with his. So they're like, yeah, between the two, they went like 3 for 28 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, they were terrible, but I thought Orlando's flaws have been clear all year. They need shooting. They need shot creation from the point guard position.
That's right.
And that was more obvious than ever before against the Cavs in that second half. More clear than ever before.
This is I think, for a young team, and it's not going to feel that way for Orlando fans, it's a great season.
Oh, for sure it was.
And this
won 47 games.
And this was an invaluable experience.
Totally agree.
Paolo and Franz and all those young players, because they had to play all the way through the series. They played in a game 7. They played against a guy who's got playoff bona fides in Donovan Mitchell. They had Donovan Mitchell, and you had Paolo Banchero. And there's going to come a time where you've got Paolo Banchero and they've got whoever is the second-year player that's trying to make a name for themselves in the playoffs. Like, Donovan Mitchell is solely responsible for them winning that game. I've never felt that way about another player. But, like, it felt like he came out and got that team back into it, got that crowd back into it, and carried himself with a swagger and everything else. And it's just youth and inexperience and obviously not being able to get any good shots.
And Okoro had a great second half defensively. He set a tone on defense. I mean, like Mitchell on offense, Okoro on defense. I mean, those two guys, and obviously Cleveland as a whole played well, but like I thought their performances just completely changed the whole complexion of the game in that third quarter.
And so invaluable experience for Orlando. They're going to be in great shape. They've got cap space. They've got assets. Yeah, they have too much, recall on the Calvin Booth article you did earlier this year. They've got too much overlap.
Yeah,
right.
Well, that's a perfect word. Yep.
Like they've got Jalen Suggs, and then they drafted a defensive first point guard.
Yeah, way too much.
Right.
They got to move some of these guys.
They've got a bunch of guys that are 7 foot tall.
Yeah, they got to make some changes and get rid of some of the overlap. And hopefully next year, Jet Howard, their rookie lottery pick from this year, is able to contribute next year. And And then go out and get some people in free agency and in the draft. And then suddenly you have a balanced roster that can help elevate and lift up Banchero and Wagner as your two best young players.
Cleveland, on the other hand, is the one that is moving on, and they're going to run into Boston. Now, Boston is just a ludicrous favorite against Cleveland. I mean, you can't make $1 off of that thing betting on Boston. So it's supposed to be an absolute wipeout. Do you see any way possible Cleveland could be competitive?
Competitive?
In where we're watching a game 6 in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, competitive, sure. I think
really?
If Mitchell has a massive performance, if he drops 45 in a game, I don't think you can rule that out.
He would have to average like over 35.
Yeah, for sure. But if you're asking me if we see a game 6, I think that would require 1, Donovan Mitchell banger, and 2, an off night shooting for Boston.
Do you think that the size could cause them a problem? In the absence of Porzingis, we have not seen Boston really, have to deal with size without Porzingis.
Well, they need Jared Allen back on the Cleveland side.
Okay.
I mean, let's say they get out for 6 and 7.
Let's say they get him back.
I don't believe there's been any news on Jared Allen. Have you seen any news on Allen's status for
but
game
it was
one?
a rib. I mean, It wasn't like, it wasn't like what we typically worry about the most, which are like groins, hamstrings, calves, soft tissue stuff. So,
but it's serious enough for him to miss.
I know, to miss a game 7.
Yeah, 3 games though. Like he missed 5, 6, and 7.
I'm not sure they weren't better off for that. I'm not kidding.
Kind of like the way
you never get that Mobley.
Well, like we talked about during the season, where sometimes it works out better when you don't have both of them.
Mobley's a center. He has a very limited offensive game, and he's a really good rim protector. I mean, Jared Allen is the captain of their defense, has been the second best player on that team all year. They're overlap. They're just not good together. They're both good without each other, but playing both of them makes it hard. Unless you're just going to play Boston and get every rebound. But you would have to get every rebound and just punish them because they don't really have size. That's the one thing Boston doesn't have. And so that's the only way you could see. It'd be Mitchell being crazy great and the size being a problem.
And the issue with Mitchell being crazy great is the fact that the Celtics have Derek White, Drew Holiday,
and they also stick on two big wings. They'll use a
Tatum
big wing.
Tatum and Brown on a switch. Like there's just so many guys that can bother Donovan Mitchell that we just didn't see. But at the same time, Orlando has dogs too. Yep. They had Suggs, they had Isaac, they had Wagner. They get a bunch of dogs on defense, and yet Mitchell can still go off because offense tends to win.
Donovan Mitchell is awesome.
He's incredible, dude. I love that guy so much, man.
This guy gets buckets.
Yeah.
I don't care who's out
there.
And
no fear as well to go into that second half down and to fight back the way he did.
He was by far the best player. It was not even.
That was remarkable. The swagger he plays with, the confidence. It's like he's one of those guys that instills belief in the rest of the team.
So we're recording this late Monday night. Tomorrow night it begins. The Thunder-Mavs. Moment of truth. I've been telling you that this Thunder team has been so good and that they remind me so much of that Memphis team that I covered that is young, rambunctious, can run over people, and then in the end, and they've got the awesome point guard and the great 2 guard and then the long, lanky, big guy. Like there's a lot of things that really remind me. And I will tell you, those young Memphis teams, the biggest problems they had were the guys they could not speed up. Because that's where much like I was telling you how the Knicks don't want to, the Pacers want you to play that way, flying up and down. Luka you go look at his record against Memphis, and Memphis was winning 56 games, and it didn't make any difference because they could not speed this guy up. You're playing at whatever pace he wants to play at, and while Denver has played faster this year, that's the thing that I would be most concerned about if I am Oklahoma City, is that he's going to drag you down into the swamp, and you're just going to have to do the we run a play, you run a play stuff. And Dallas has more vets. They've got more big guys, and they've got the best player. So that's why I think they'll win.
And how many games?
I think 6. I think because that's if you're saying that the road team is going to win, I think 6 is how it usually gets done.
What are the odds on this series right now?
I'd say they're like almost dead even. I tell you, they split the first.
Minus 130 Thunder, plus 106 Dallas.
Yeah. So I'd say they split the first 2. Dallas wins the ones at home. Go back, probably lose 5, come back, win 6. That's how I'd guess it goes. And that's just respect for Luka and what they bring to the table. And also young teams have to take their scars. If I truly believe that, then I've got to stick with that. And usually those scars don't come in the Western Conference Finals.
Well, I'm picking the Thunder in 6. That's my selection. I'm sticking with them.
All right.
Everything you said about Luka and Kyrie is 100% true.
Where do you think they have the advantage?
Those guys are awesome players. I think OKC is well equipped defensively. You have SGA, you have Dort, you have Jalen Williams. You're going to have Dort either on Luka or Kyrie, Jalen Williams on the other. You're going to have Cason Wallace coming off the bench, defending hard for 15, 20 minutes a game. They have a lot of good defensive players on the perimeter. They have Chet on the interior. They are a good rotation team on defense. They have size with their help with guys like Giddey, guys like, Wiggins coming off the bench for that matter. They're just a good team from top to the bottom with no weak links. And so I think with OKC, despite their youth, I think it's a fair concern against them. I think it is really the only knock against them other than the lack of size in the front court next to Chet. But I just think with the Dallas side of things, they also are a very good team. But at the same time, you can flip it the other way and say, well, who is going to be the defensive guys against SGA and Jalen Williams over the course of the full series? I think that's the concern.
Some weird matchups. There's no way around it. Probably Derek Jones. Derek Jones is going to have to do it, right?
He's going to have to be great for sure.
He is.
I mean, it's going to be a really...
not having Kleber is going to hurt them.
And that's exactly what I was going to say next. Kleber was so important in that first round series against the Clippers, and you could say Jason Kidd relied on him too much sometimes, like with the game of Harden just hitting floater after floater over him. But Kleber is still really important with the versatility that he brings on defense. He's switchable. He can defend the interior a little bit. He can rebound a little bit, and he can defend on the perimeter. And now you lose that. Like, to me, that's a huge cog that would have been really important against SGA, against Jalen Williams that you're now missing. And that just puts more pressure on a Josh Green off the bench, more pressure on PJ Washington to play 30 plus minutes and, maybe even 40 plus minutes in certain games. I think that Kleber injury will prove to be a major problem for the Dallas Mavericks in this series, which is why I'm picking them in 6, Oklahoma City, rather than 7.
I just think Luka is going to control the game.
Well, I mean,
dude, he was bad in that Clippers series shooting the ball, and they ran him out.
And they did. You're right. But on the other hand, are we sure he'll get back to Luka level, or is there something nagging at him?
Yes, we're about to find out.
Yeah, we will for sure.
Yep, we're about to find out.
It's going to be a great series, man.
Oh, I can't wait.
Like Thunder,
Mavericks, super entertaining.
My God, that's going to be an awesome, I think, thrilling series with some competitive games with guys going back and forth. SGA versus Luka, or Jalen Williams versus Kyrie. Like, it could be awesome. And some of those late fourth quarters are some of the best isolation scorers, the best shot creators in all of basketball. Like, to me, like, that's one of those series like every fan should watch. Thunder-Mavs.
We need it to be a great series because so far, not sure the other ones are going to be great. Any of the other 3.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right. That's possible.
We were pretty spoiled with that. I tweeted out I'd rather just watch 21 Knicks Sixers games because I know what's ahead and it's not going to be as good as this, and it hasn't been.
I mean, even Minnesota Denver was supposed to be this epic series,
dude.
And maybe it will be. Maybe
we're recording this podcast on Monday night. Like, I was pissed after the first game because the refs decided it, and the second game sucked. Just as a basketball fan. As a casual fan, like bad basketball game
without rooting interest in either team, yes. But on the other hand, though, I was like,
there was shocking.
But there were also just so many possessions in the first half watching the Wolves defense that my jaw just dropped. I was like, oh my God, this is one of the most remarkable defensive performances I've ever seen in any sport.
Do you think that Rudy shouldn't win Defensive Player of the Year because of it?
Well, I did vote Victor Wembanyama.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did.
Because he did that interview with you?
No.
That's wild. That is wild.
I had
you
Rudy
turned
second.
your back on a team that sent you. There's a friggin' jersey hanging behind you that says, "To the president of my fan club, Kevin O'Connor, I love you. Hugs and kisses. No Diddy, Rudy Gobert." Unbelievable.
No, I voted for Victor because I think we saw it tonight with the Wolves game. I just don't believe Marcus Smart should have won Defensive Player of the Year either the year he won.
How dare you?
Just because I got a Marcus Smart.
Grizzly
I have a Marcus Smart jersey. To Paul, make today great. To my dad dying of cancer.
Memphis Grizzly great, Marcus Smart.
Well, Celtics great. Giving a jersey to my dying dad
That's
years
true.
ago. So
you're turning your back on everyone tonight.
To me, I don't just wait till I take down the Ingram jersey.
Oh God, that should have been a Goodwill a week ago.
I just don't think just because you're the best defensive player on the best defensive team necessarily means that you should win it. Sometimes it should, like in the 3 times Gobert won it before. He was the anchor of some Jazz units that were an embarrassment without him. That is one of the reasons why I think Victor deserved the nod.
Are you
over
saying
Rudy.
Joe Ingles has slow feet?
Sure am.
I am.
Damn right I am. just
you
like
really did. You really did vote Wembanyama.
Yeah,
wow.
I did. Yeah, I know some others did too. I'm not sure how many did.
Dude, that Nike commercial, have you seen it?
Oh, the alien. Yeah, it's amazing.
Dude, they nailed it with him.
Dude, they really have.
The logo is cool. The alien whole bit is cool.
How must Giannis feel with the way they flopped with him? And then you compare it to the promotion with Victor, and they are just 10 out of 10.
It's
nailing it. A+++++.
Yeah.
And then Giannis, it's like they're playing a commercial for him after he loses in the playoffs. And nothing after he wins the finals.
Oh man, that's tough.
Well, good. I mean, they're doing great with Victor, though. Good, really good.
They gave Booker some damn skateboarding shoes.
Oh yeah,
those D-Book ones, the Vans with a swoosh on them,
with the little book flap in the back, right?
Terrible.
Yeah, I mean they clearly. I mean they're hitting a home run with Victor, though.
Oh, they're nailing it. Yeah,
I look forward to seeing how the vote breaks down. I think Gobert will win his 4th. But I wonder what percentage of the vote Victor gets. Because to me, Victor was the most transformative defender in the league.
Well,
the Spurs were a top 10 quality defense when he was on the floor. Not even close. It was in the same ballpark as the Wolves with Gobert on the floor, in the same ballpark as the Lakers with AD, the Heat with Bam, when Victor was on the floor. And to me, that's what mattered. And you factor in the weak defense that he had around him. The fact they were so competitive with him, I think Victor deserved it, and so he got my vote. But it was really close because Gobert, I'll tell you what, man, he was a close second, and he deserved all NBA consideration as well.
Oh boy,
yeah.
Who needs enemies when they got friends like you? Friggin' turning your back on Rudy Gobert. I mean, I never thought I'd see the day.
I mean, I know we're joking here,
bro.
But. I know we're joking.
I'm not joking. You really turned your back on this guy.
No, but it touches on a serious thing. Like,
if you'll get rid of Gobert, you'll get rid of me. Shit, I gotta watch out. Might have a knife in my back in a minute, too.
But you're touching on a serious topic, though, because I don't think your relationships should have anything to do with what you're voting for. The vote should be purely about what you think who should be rewarded. Like to me, like I know some voters have said
Kevin objective.
I know some voters have said like they will favor a guy if they have like the money coming up with a supermax or whatever. It's like, to me, that shouldn't even enter the equation. It shouldn't even be part of voting, for that matter. I don't think voting should dictate player salary at all. The award should just be the award, and that's it. But to me, like, it should be purely about the product on the court and not about any of this other stuff.
Like if they give you hour-long sit-down interviews.
I'm
not persuaded by anything. Did you sit down and interview face-to-face and fall in deep love with the guy that you voted defensive player of the year.
I mean, I've been in deep love with Victor for the year and a half I've been pursuing that story or that podcast with him. I asked Victor's team after the Vegas games against Scoot. I was like, hey, I'd love to do a short little Zoom conversation with Victor. And then after the end of the year, it's like trying to get it after the draft, trying to get it in October, November, December. Never happened. But and then they just wanted to wait till after the season. And
also
that was
super
great.
smart that you voted for another French guy, because then like nobody could call you xenophobic or anything for not voting for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah,
right?
I love the French.
I know you do.
I just interviewed Alex Sarr over the weekend too in Santa Barbara. Pour one out for Frankie Smokes. He's somewhere. And Killian, I know, still not on the roster.
You just got to go with the tall ones. The tall ones.
No, just the tall Frenchies.
The tall French guys. 6'10" or over.
Isn't it crazy though for the Olympics this year, man? Like they're gonna have Victor and Rudy out there.
Come on.
One of the things, I know, like we're over time here, but with Victor, my interview with him, when I asked him, you must really be looking forward to going against Joel Embiid in the Olympics after he chose Team USA over you guys. And I think he was straight up lying when he said, oh, I'm not even thinking about Embiid. I haven't even thought about that at all. Are you kidding me? Of course you've thought about it.
Of course he's thought about it.
Of course you have. You want to crush him. Is what him and Rudy probably want to do. That was the one thing he said in there. I'm like, no way. He just clearly didn't want to put any bulletin board material up there. But I swear to God, that must be on his mind above all else going into the Olympics, besides getting gold. But crushing Embiid after choosing Team USA. Because he committed to France.
Yeah, he did.
And then he changed.
I saw some article a couple weeks ago. It's like that dude that got
the letter
jumped over, Frederick Weiss. You didn't see that? He's like, he's trashing him. He should never even be allowed in this country again and all this crap. I was like, shut your ass up, man. Vince Carter put his nuts on your head. Enough with your opinions. Fred Weiss. All right. It's going to do it for tonight's show. Thank you to our executive producer, Jessie Lopez, as always. Kevin, I'll talk to you Thursday night.
I'm looking forward to enjoy the games.